welcome to another video here on the Critical Focus channel. First off, a big shout out to all my members who support my work, it keeps the paint flowing and the electricity running. Members do get access to the member Discord, will influence the content, the matchups, whatnot. There is a join button below if you feel so inclined. But regardless, I am happy for your support in the form of actually just watching the video, of a like and a comment, and if you haven't already, please do feel free to subscribe as well. And if you are looking to buy Warhammer merch, there is an affiliate link in the video description as well. Let's get on with the video. Alright, we've got two new warbands, and rather than the old staple of doing a separate video, I figured now that it's only fighter cards and war scrolls, I'll simply chuck them together. A big thanks as always to Games Workshop for sending me these beautiful and disgusting models to paint up, record games with and review for you all. Let's start with the Seraphon and the Jaws of Itzl. So the Jaws of Itzl is pretty much your staple big 3-man elite strike warband with a little tiny tapas plate of snakes, frogs and lizards added on as a curiosity. I thoroughly enjoyed painting these guys up, and they gave me no real issues building them either. The Seraphon are quite sturdy models, and the Venomites weren't all too many parts either, so a bit of a lore dump here quickly. First, these guys were originally a part of a Seraphon warhost sent out to battle the Skaven, but they lost their Star Master in a cave-in and just narrowly escaped themselves. However, the Star Master didn't actually perish, since shortly afterwards, Crojax, the new leader of the warband, started to receive telepathic communications with the trapped Star Master, albeit scrambled messages, somehow interfered by the energies of the Ember Stones. Nonetheless, he tried to interpret these scrambled messages, but it mostly led him to random acts of violence and outbursts, which sounds just about right, I think. So let's look at the fighter cards. The fighters all sport 3 move, and the big lads no less than 5 health each, with the leader on 3 bounty, the other 2 on 2, and the Venomites, being the diminutive novelty they are, no bounty. They all sport a single shield, bar the Venomites, who slithers, hops and wobbles around on 2 dodge. Attack-wise, they are nothing to scoff at, with Crojax bringing the pain with 2 hammers, 3 damage on his range 1 attack. Rotak has an attack profile we've seen a lot of, 1 range 2 hammers 2 damage, and the same profile for range 2, but with 1 damage. Sokar dishes out an Enias-like attack with 3 swords 2 damage. If you for some reason would want to attack with the tapas plate, they do 1 damage on 2 swords. Inspired, Crojax goes to a very respectable 2 shields and brings his attack from 2 hammers to a whooping 4 swords, and Rotak gains a massive buff with merging his attacks into a range 2 4 swords 2 damage attack. Wow, as if that weren't enough, Sokar bruises up your enemies with 4 swords 2 damage crit Grievous. And on 4 swords you'll find that Grievous quite a lot. Very respectable stat lines, and the pets as well gains a bit of accuracy with picking up a sword and stagger. Very promising altogether. Let's check the Warscroll. So I'm going to talk about the Inspire after going over the Predatory Fighter's ability, because when one of your big lads or the Saurus fighters are attacked unsuccessfully and you roll a shield in your save roll, so make sure to roll that save roll even if your opponent has no successes, you will ping them back 1 damage if you find a shield in the defense. Do note that there is no range restriction here, which I wholeheartedly believe to be an error, as it makes 0 sense, as it is described as these sources defending themselves with yaws and shields. But as written, you may even ping back Eileen inspired from 5 hexes away, plinking you with her harp bow. Totally unreasonable, of course. So yeah, obviously a very good ability that should proc quite a bit, especially on Crojax inspired, and those upgrades to pick up extra defense dice or rerolls may be extra juicy on this warband as a result. The Inspire then happens if you inflict damage on an enemy fighter in your opponent's power step or attack step, so that ties back to that ability, of course. So yeah, then if you do that, you get to pick a friendly fighter and inspire that one on each such occasion. The Instinctual Control Search ability lets your Venomites move as a reaction to you picking a target as part of an attack made by a friendly Saurus. You can only make this reaction if the Venomites have no move or charge tokens, however. Well, a nice little assist bot move, such as with Hexbane's dogs, albeit a bit worse given only move 3 here. And of course, yeah, only one tapas plate of Venomites. Savage Mauling is a once per game ability you may use in a power step, where you pick an enemy fighter adjacent to a damaged Saurus without a charge token. You roll an attack dice for each damage token that friendly fighter has, and for each sword or crit you deal a damage on that enemy fighter. So this is a once per game, but if when you use it you should happen to kill an enemy with it, you get to use it one more time, and the same goes for the next time if that should trigger. So this might be a bit tricky to set up, etc., and you'll ideally want to use it while you have a lot of wounds on your fighters. So it's a bit of a chicken race as to how long you will want to wait before you use it. But in best case scenario, you may dish out maybe 2-3 damage with it. Anything beyond that is just purely insane luck. More likely it's gonna be like 1 or 2 damage, given swords plus crits are 33% of the dice results on a single die. Obstinate can sort of help you set up the previous ability, as it is used in a power step to pick a friendly Saurus, and that fighter cannot be driven back until the end of the battle round. Sure, you can use the Savage Mauling in any power step, but you ideally want to do it in the opponent's power step to trigger that Inspire. And just generally, having a single one of your 3 main hitters suffer no drive back for an entire round is pretty good, especially since you're not that fast and have mostly range 1. Overall, ideally include a couple of defensive boosts to trigger that ability even more, and do stack up on some ping cards maybe, or like out of sequence attacks to dish out damage in the opponent's turn, and you should be able to inspire a couple of your big boys in jiffy. And then this warband is pretty hard to stop, and they are no pushovers even uninspired. But especially inspired, the leader's stat line is almost godlike. Stat-wise, they're pretty much Morgox with pets, but with some novel tricks of their own, of course. And being an elite aggro warband, if we ignore the Venomites, and we should, this warband is very well suited for the new aggro deck, which is generally very well catered to this smaller type of elite aggro warband. So do give that a shot, and I'll try to get to a full review of that deck when my voice can actually handle more reviews. Let's move over to the Grandfather's Gardeners before my voice breaks. These guys are a mastery warband, so gear up on your cerebral capacities, I guess. I'm writing this script at 2 AM, so I'm screwed in that regard. A bit of a lore dump here initially, then Phlegmus Potbelly is really hooked on the idea of gifting maggots and seepages across the realm, and he has allied himself with not only plague bears but also demon flies and ticks to aid him with his noble quest. I counted no less than 11 ticks attached to his model, and I was almost disgusted trying to paint him. Well, I've sort of lost it on the lore, I guess, but yeah, they want to cultivate and spread love, peace, and all sorts of understanding. Let's check out the fighter cards. Fairly moderate speed here with 3 move bar the flying fly, disgustingly named Squirt. They're on a single shield, but the fly is 2 dodge. Leader is on 4 health, with the other plague bears on 3 and the fly on 2. Bounty is 2 for Phlegmus and Strouch, while the rest is 1. You notice their attacks look rather strange there, and that'll be explained very shortly. We've got range 2 on no less than 3 fighters with fairly decent accuracy across the board, bar Dripters, who is weighed down, I guess, by the giant tick attached to his back, so he's only on 2 swords. Inspired, they gain even more accuracy, and Squart, who were already on 1 damage crit Grievous, now goes to a very strong 3 swords 2 damage crit Grievous. I say very strong because he's basically supposed to be the hangaround, and still he almost brings a leader strong attack. The most important part here is that Strouch, Dripters and Slunge all gain a wound inspired. So let's move on to the Warscroll to explain that weird symbol on the fighter's damage place on the fighter cards, and also break down why that extra wound is so vital. A friendly fighter inspires when they are vulnerable. Doesn't sound very good, I know, but bear with me because imperturbable, sorry, I'm trying to pronounce that, which I just googled to mean unable to be excited, means that uninspired, they can't take more than 2 damage. So take Strouch for example. Say he gets hit by the strongest fighter in the game, the wielder of the blade. He comes in with his massive 4 damage attack, or even 5 if he sweated the blade. Doesn't matter. Strouch is uninspired. Strouch can only take 2 damage. Strouch has 3 wounds. Strouch is now vulnerable. Strouch inspires. Strouch Strooch is no longer vulnerable because Strooch has picked up an extra wound on his inspired side. This obviously makes this warband very, very rough to wear down, especially for a warband that relies on a single fighter to deal the damage, such as centerpiece models, heavy warbands such as the Headsman's Curse or Kanan's Reapers does. And that example with the Wielder of the Blade is not an accident, that's the exact matchup I tried them with, and basically Headsman's Curse couldn't do anything to stop this warband. I basically had no fighters out of action and no damaged fighters at the end of the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's return to the Warscroll. I'll also mention that the Blooming Plague then, where a friendly fighter has the Gardener rune mark instead of a characteristic, it is equal to the current space on your tracker. So let's check the tracker. The cycle, the cultivating thing that makes up the majority of the scroll here. So you start the game with a counter at the circle named start at the top, and after your turn, you advance the tracker one step. You also advance the tracker one step when one of your fighters take damage. So that damage can happen in your turn, your power step, your opponent's power step, their turn, doesn't matter. When it happens, you advance the tracker. You also advance the tracker one step if after your turn you hold more treasure tokens than your opponent. So that means that if after your turn you hold more treasure tokens than your opponent, you advance the tracker two steps. Once for your turn ending, which is the first condition, and once for you holding more treasure tokens after your turn. So the cycle will move quite fast actually, and then depending on where you are at the tracker, the damage characteristics of your fighter will have the corresponding numbers there, as I mentioned with a Blooming Plague. It's mostly a value between 1 and 3, but there's also one circle that corresponds with a round number, meaning that the damage will be equal to the round number when you are on that place on the tracker. And at the Reap a Harvest circle, you will be able to heal a fighter one. I triggered that heal 3 or 4 times in my game, and that's quite a lot. And slap a healing potion on top of that, and the damage mitigation this warband has is quite insane. I've heard rumblings of this warband being not very good, and I certainly beg to differ, honestly. And your damage will be even better in later rounds, as that round number location will be increasing as well. Do note that this damage can still be modified by other factors such as upgrades, so this is not an unmodifiable number. The warband is fairly slow, but we also have range 2 on 3 of the fighters and a move 4 squirt that can do 3 damage on his crit Grievous. So this warband both brings the pain, got decent accuracy and very good survivability. So I rate these guys very highly. Also the new mastery deck, which I will get to very soon, fits these guys quite well, I would argue. I will just say as a closing statement here that my example there with the Wielder of the Blade or Centerpiece warbands will suffer maybe more than some other warbands, obviously. For example, Crimson Court. Fighters who are very good at doing 2 damage. It doesn't really matter then if you can't do more than 2 damage to an uninspired fighter. You will need 2 attacks to bring down one of these guys anyway. But warbands that kind of really evolve around one strong big hitter, they don't really have anything, because they have that one big hitter that needs to charge, and then he does 2 damage. And so you see the problem, right? Well, that's it for today. That's it for the 2 new warbands. I hope you found this useful. I hope that you have great fun playing them, or at least I hope you don't have a bad experience going up against them. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.